out tonight?
I think they're still partying back there.
Thanks for coming out. If you haven't been here before, we're an independent bookstore, and so you're supporting us by being here, and that's awesome. If you have a cell phone, can you put that on silent, please?
Can't leave without buying something.
Yeah,
Thanks,
true. We'll lock you in. We are so excited to have James Dashant back here tonight. He's going to talk about his newest book, Shepard Fairey, Inc., about Shepard Fairey. We had him here last year to talk about Stay Up Los Angeles, which was a street art book about LA, and it was a lot of fun. We're excited to have him back. He brought Robbie Conal with him as well. So I'm going to turn over to James.
Pick me up off the street.
That's right.
And then he'll intro Robbie. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that smattering of applause. Robbie, when you join me up here, I'm really excited to have Robbie here. Yeah, you just sit on it. It's you can pick up the microphone first if you'd like to.
Friendly.
This is going to be a fun discussion, just having him here. I told him, I warned Robbie that I'm hoping to get a little cranky. So if you're not familiar with Robbie or myself, which you're most likely familiar with him, but my name is Jim Dashant. I'm a professor of art history at Azusa Pacific University and write art criticism here in Los Angeles. And Robbie is obviously really well known. And when I was writing Shepard Fairey, Inc., and when I started this process, I always had Robbie in mind for writing the foreword, and I was hoping to get him interested. And I remember sending him the text early on after I finished it to sort of try and convince him.
I've read that book so many times. You don't need to read it, just look at the pictures. I read it.
I appreciate that. That'll go on Amazon later today. Robbie obviously is a mainstay in the history of graffiti and street art. He was recognized at the 2011 Art in the Streets exhibit at MoCA. His work has been exhibited all around the world.
Why are you doing this?
I'm trying to be nice. I told you I'd be nice to start off. So after this, it's no more. Anyway, they say he graduated with a bachelor's, although you didn't complete all your coursework, right? How did that work out? How did you graduate? That's true, isn't it?
No.
No, okay. So that's an internet rumor.
Well, it's kind of true.
Okay, so they ended up giving you the degree. Then you
got kicked out of school.
Is that what it was? Okay, then you got your MFA at Stanford.
Yes.
And then you ended up moving to LA in '84, correct?
I did move to LA in '84.
Okay. And since then, you've been featured in LA Times, New York Times, on television, CBS, whatnot, and it's been pretty incredible. But
a lot of good it did me.
Now you're here at Book Soup. Well, living the dream.
I mean, you guys are great.
This is going to go so well. I'm so glad we're recording this. So, to start off...
That's why you have editors.
Yeah, thank you. So, we can cut that later. Okay. So, the introduction for the book and how Robbie starts it off, he talks about a time when Shepard and Mir One contacted you to be part of an anti-Bush, anti-war street art campaign. And I thought that would be a nice, if you could tell a little bit about that story and how that introduction worked out, it would be a nice introduction to today.
Oh?
Yeah.
You want to hear this? Sure. Okay, so I've been doing street art since 1986, and I was already old when I started. Just a late bloomer, if you call that blooming. And, so I was making about social and political issues that I cared about, and basically a satirical form, making fun of, people had way too much power over us and abused it by my peculiar standards. And I put bunny ears on Dick Cheney, and that kind of cut him down to size, and have bunnies dropping bunny shit bombs on him and calling it abomination, which he was, and we happened to be an abomination in a way. And I'm not saying that I was lonely, but most street art did not address say party politics or that kind of politics, although street art is political. I mean, everything's political, and contextually you can make a really good case for it being a form of civil disobedience, and we can talk about all that blah blah blah, but I would say that most street artists have issues whether they know they have them or not, and because if they're doing it, they kind of know it. But in 2000, when Bush stole the election, basically, or his people stole the election, that got street artists and Hip Hop Nation, skaters, rappers, the whole that whole cultural underground got their attention, and by 2004, Mirror One is a great graffiti artist and piecer from Echo Park, and his then girlfriend Elizabeth I decided that they weren't going to take it anymore. They were mad. We're not going to take it anymore. We can't let this happen again. But what can we do? You know, and you just use your whatever you got, which is basically sweat equity and piecing, and express yourself in public about that. And Elizabeth convinced Mir that maybe he shouldn't do this alone because the United States is kind of big. And she also convinced him that the other artist to do this with him was Shepard Fairey. So they got together with Shepard. They agreed to do a national street art campaign, poster campaign, just like Jim said, anti-Bush image in their own style, each of their own style, and also referencing their resistance to and horror at the Iraq War. Then they looked at the map again and realized it was really big, the United States. And so they got the idea, well, maybe let's get the OG out of the rest home on the west side, and we'll make it a triptych, you know. Old OG meaning old guy. And they called me cold, and I started crying. I was weeping. And they're not really the response they wanted.
That was just when I asked you to do this, you wept as well. So
Yeah. And I'm going to go home and cry.
Yeah.
It's just what I do. And it's good for you. It's art. A cleansing kind of thing. And God knows I'm filthy. There's a fatty, like he's pacing. Well, he's probably got a kid with him, though. This is the second thing she's had to go to, right? Because we were all at Shepard's, pre-opening party with 3,000 of his closest friends just the other day. But I don't know where I was, but I was somewhere in America, and so I mean the thing was that these guys, younger guys, like, because I'm the oldest of all ever, so they're always younger guys, but that they were taking this on themselves to do a national campaign about a specifically political issue, and then asking me to join them. I figured it should be the other way around, you know, because I've talked to these guys all the time. I said, like, if you could put up a tag, you could probably write a sentence, you know, about something you care about. It could happen, you know, like if you know the English language or any language, whatever. So, you know, instead of like, wah, 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 it could be waka, waka, waka. And so we did that, you know, we got my printer, Typecraft in Pasadena, very high-end printer that just thinks I'm kind of cute or something, to print up thousands of posters. And Shepard even got his friend Big Eddie Donaldson, who's like, you know, like the head of the like show producer mafia or something, to put on a party at the Avalon where 1,200 kids showed up, and we had, you know, bands that came off tour, and Culture Clash was there. The great Jerry Quickly, the slam poet, who's like 6'2", 340. Robbie, don't hurt me. I love you, man. Don't hurt me. And we had a big event, and you know, we went out all around the country doing whatever we could do, and that's how I met those guys. Although I knew their work and stuff, and they knew my work, and we had a wonderful time. It doesn't mean that it changed anybody's minds about anything, but you know, just the camaraderie and doing something about something you care about, expressing yourself in public, when you have no other way to do it, was good enough for us. So.
Yeah, well, they really admired you, and Shepard's gone on record saying you're a major influence in his work and in the work he does and, and why he does that. Yeah, tell us that story. So, but this relates to all art being political, because Shepard has a lot of explanations for how he came up with the Obey campaign, and one starts with the movie They Live, and that as well. He also has his theory of phenomenology that he talks about obeying, but at the same time he'll say, I did that to satisfy the educated types, which I take offense at. And so
you would see him at RISD reading Heidegger and going,
right.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to do Andre the Giant.
Yeah, that feels very sort of after the fact.
Right, Shep?
Yeah, so what you've mentioned, and so what does obey mean when it's considered a political act? How do you view that then?
It means just the opposite.
Yeah.
That's simple, Instead of saying disobey, just said obey and figure you're going to get it. But the thing that Shepard really traffics in is distribution.
Yeah.
And Marshall McLuhan's concept of the medium is the message. If you saturate any matrix, any cultural matrix, or a city or whatever, with a threshold number of images, no matter what they are or what they're supposed to mean or what you think they mean, they're going to mean something. Because they're there, everywhere, and they weren't. And they take on meanings whether you thought of them or not.
Yeah, and depending on the context, and it's changed as sort of the art has
especially
grown.
if they mean nothing.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
They got it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
They get all my jokes.
It is a bookstore,
That's right, literate people.
Yeah. So I call the book.
So not used to that.
Yeah, the subtitle artist.
So visual.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll draw it for him later. Don't worry. We call it artist, professional, vandal, and I use those identities because they can complement one another, but they also contradict. And we've talked a lot about his various identities. I mean, he's an artist, he's a designer, a businessman, a PR specialist. I mean, he's a lot of different things.
He went to school for design at RISD. He didn't go to school for fine art or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's obviously...
he's fine.
No, but you're very careful about the terms you use, even when we've talked about him in the past. I mean, how do you view his identity? When you look at Shepard Fairey, when you went to his opening this Wednesday night, how do you look at him? Because
all
he does
of the above.
All the above? And does he do all of them well?
Who am I to say? I'm not the art critic, you're the art critic.
Yeah, but you're Robbie Cannell.
Yeah, well, in private I tear him apart and cries. We cry together. And then he takes his $15 million and I go home.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's reportedly worth an estimated about $15 million, probably that and growing.
Well, he's doing good,
Yeah, and the thing is, so when you think about, this is the problem though, because you think about the history of graffiti and street art, museums and the museum quality work that's coming out of graffiti and street art, it's coming from a lot of privileged white children when it comes down to it.
Is it?
Oh, yeah, I think so. It's a lot different today, I would say, now in the 21st century than it was in the 60s.
I'm a privileged white child.
Yeah, you gotta let me finish though. Because in the 60s and 70s, let's say it was about a disenfranchised voice with graffiti. Let's say the history of graffiti and why we're writing. Don't worry, I'm getting you started. So, do you see a problem with that as we sort of this expands, as we see street artists?
Do I see a problem?
Yeah, do you?
Everything's a fucking problem.
Yeah. Tell me what.
Capitalism, baby.
Yeah.
Let's shut up. Where do you think you are, Robbie? I know where I am.
Yeah.
Fight the power.
I mean, there is something to
Smash
that. Though.
the power.
You're fighting
Capitalist
something,
state.
though. When you fight something, but when you come from a privileged background, are you fighting anything?
Yeah, you're fighting your privileged background.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about Shepard, his father's a doctor in North Carolina, and he had a lot of trouble growing up because he was an arty kid who was skating and getting into all kinds of trouble for not, towing the straight line to doctorhood. And what his parents go, oh God, he's an artist. It's the worst thing that could happen to us. What do? We don't know anything. let's just send them as far away as we can to Idlewild, which is like up there somewhere around here.
It's a really nice private school.
Very nice place, but it's nice away from them.
Yeah.
And away from their social circle where he was causing them all kinds of embarrassment, and so it solved that problem in terms of space,
Yeah.
but not in terms of the space between his ears or his heart. So
Yeah. So you're, basically saying that everyone has problems. You just find different types of problems.
no,
that
I'm
react
not
against.
saying that at all. I'm saying that all these issues that you were talking about are really worth thinking about, and they're crunchy. You're full of contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really try to understand the zeitgeist and the cultural matrix in which we live, and how our society works and doesn't work, and wherever a kid comes from who's doing art on the streets, why are they on the streets?
Yeah.
And in terms of graffiti entering, the fine art market, or the fine art, the cultural economy of fine art didn't want anything to do with graffiti until the fashion industry started making big bucks on street art by putting it on clothing and selling it. And then the art world gets a little touchy when it thinks it's missing something, especially when it's missing money. And it was almost like being bitten to death by ducks. The art world keeps getting nipped by these graffiti artists, and like Quicksilver or something,
Yeah.
fashion and art. The fashion industry and the high art industry are very close to each other.
Yeah.
And, depending on what's beneficial to them at the time, they either say, this is great, we love each other, and it's synergy, or they hate each other.
Yeah.
But when there's money to be made, they're going to try to make it. So there are still very few graffiti artists who have actually crossed over into the high fine art world.
Mm-hmm.
But graffiti and street art, I don't mean just graffiti, but street art where does it come from? I mean, it's irrepressible. Because it's legitimate art. It's kind of like, what are the great American, here he goes. See, now I'm talking. He woke me up. Shit. Forget it. I start talking about jazz.
No, this dovetails in nicely because where I want to go, because we've talked about
I want to go to
street art T-shirts. So the ascension into sort of the gallery, museum, let's just say pop culture and stores like you're talking about, because it's been amazing the way street art has been accepted into that. I've been to downtown Disney. They have a street art store basically where they sell toys. I've seen a Mir One sticker in a Disney store. So it's an interesting thing. Yeah.
You didn't tell me about that.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So in a way, you could frame that as, okay, so you can frame that as a subversive tactic. This person has become so successful that they've been able to work their ways through these various avenues.
You don't know what's subversive? The Simpsons is subversive.
Yeah, Simpsons is subversive. So
Not this shit.
yeah, so okay, so
This wonderful art
all right, so this is what
that we make.
This is what I call it in the book. I compare Shepard in that process. I compare him to Thomas Kincaid in the way Thomas
I
Kincaid
seem to remember.
used the language of fine art or high art, and specifically Impressionism and early modernism, to sell cheap prints and calendars and porcelain figures. And in the same way I say, well, Shepard is doing the same thing, using the language of the street to sell products like toys and T-shirts and various products like laptop covers. So my question to you is, you're someone who hasn't really embraced that completely. What's your views on that?
What's the question?
In terms of embracing those avenues and creating toys and products with your artwork on them.
Make me an offer.
Yeah.
I mean, I always said that, one thing that you have to understand about street artists is that give them $100 and ask them to do something and see what happens. They'll do it really fast. and then ask you for 200.
Yeah.
And they'd be right. You know, art coming up, I mean, this kind of art, just like rap, just like jazz, bubbles up from the streets. It doesn't trickle down like Ronald Reagan's economy, you know, from on high. There is a trickle down effect in fine art, you know, entering the popular production economy, but the trickle up art is really serious stuff and very lively and almost impossible to stop. And if you're trying to stop it, it's a mistake in this culture. You know, it's like I was talking with, they talk about a bunch of skateboarders and like Stacy Peralta's a friend of mine, and you talk about like skateboarders were so upset, you know, that skateboarding is illegal. You see signs all over the place that skateboarding is not a crime. I said, you know, you guys have terrible marketing strategy. Come on, Colette. Say it is a crime. You know, you'll get paid. You know, like psychic jujitsu, baby. Spit a little consciousness. Come on. You know, think about it. The language can be manipulated. And I don't think Shepard, I think a lot of stuff happened to Shepard. You know, and one of the things that you know, one of the reasons I wrote 1,500 words when you asked me for 500 was just because that's who I am, but also because I know something about Shepard and something about artists that other people don't think about. People, you know, who see the art out in the streets, and that is that artists mature. And you know, Shepard's like 40-something. He's got 2 kids. He's actually read some stuff. He's grown up. Maybe he actually did read Heidegger. I had Mir One, you know, quoting Howard Zinn to me, and I'm going, thanks. That's so cool.
Yeah.
You know, I never heard that before.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is that he did.
Yeah.
You know, and that these guys are learning stuff, and you just don't think about artists' career, or at least, you know, like street artists, or rappers or whatever. My wife and I would have large arguments when like NWA came out and they were doing their stuff, and they would say, well, that's not really music, there's no melody, you know, it's just like angry talking. And I said, yeah, but where's it going to go? There's nowhere for it to go except to get more musical. And when it did, what do you call that, people? Hip hop. You know, so, and it did, and this is what happens in the best cases, you know, to artists like me or to artists like Shepard, Twist, Barry McGee, and lots of, I mean, human beings are so talented, it's crazy. You know, distribution of art by human beings, whether it's, you know, music, dance, photography, sculpture, anything, is very limited. You know, even with the internet, it's still like a pinhead structure. And that's a real problem.
Yeah.
And then you think, who owns the means of distribution? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, this rise that you're talking about, it's interesting when you think about Shepard's role and the role of the artist, let's say in a modern and contemporary era, as it's sort of progressed. Shepard has gone from, I call it an icon maker to an icon himself. He's been featured on TMZ as a celebrity. The lines for his show this week was like a football field in length. I mean, they're filled to capacity. People are waiting in line with posters. They can't wait to get anything on their body signed. I mean, he's acting, it's like a rock star in the way it's gone. And so, you know, the modern illusion of the white cube is you didn't want to have the artist in the gallery. The artist was like an embarrassing piece of furniture, because without the artist, the work seemed more important.
Is that right?
Oh, without a doubt. Well, think of like the careers of so many artists like Basquiat or Herring we're talking about. when they die, they become that much more special because it's a limited
Well, that
limited
makes it
number,
special.
right? But even having
I'm
the,
looking forward to that.
but not having the
Maybe that'll do it.
not having the artist there, white in between spaces, not seeing windows to the outside. There's a lot of theory that would say the work seems more special.
You think I could disagree with that?
You could disagree. Tell me why you disagree with that.
Because the other side of that is fetishizing the artist as the shaman of the tribe, the
Right.
hotline to the sublime, the person who's so special that only he or she, no she's allowed. We're talking about, Western culture. Anyway, the Western art canon. But yeah, he's special, but he's also crazy. And this is spectacle, like the 19th century paradigm would be Van Gogh.
Mm.
You want Van Gogh in the gallery selling his art because there's the crazy guy without the ear.
Mhm.
Like that's validating, like, oh, he really is crazy, okay.
Right.
He's not putting us on, With Shepard, he's so good looking and so nice, you kind of wonder, like, I don't know, he's not crazy enough.
Yeah.
But Raymond Pettibone works,
Yes, he is crazy. Yeah.
Well,
Well, let's say,
I
but
like him.
well, that makes sense. So let's. But when you become the center of attention like that, does it take away from the work? The way I was going to follow that is that a good thing that he becomes the center of attention? Because I even noticed, even at the openings, people are looking at him. They're not looking at his work.
Well, openings
necessarily.
are not for looking at the art.
Well, let's just say in general, they're following him. They want to meet Shepard Fairey. They
Yeah,
want to have a
yeah,
Shepard Fairey
That's
experience.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
We've done that, so, I don't think any graffiti art. I mean, the graffiti artists who go, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me. Give them $100,000. Okay,
Look at me.
now I got some threads. Now I'm wearing a cat shirt.
That is a nice cat shirt.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I like your shirt.
yeah, thank you very much. I borrowed it.
That
Thank you
is.
for lending it to me. I appreciate it.
Well, it don't fit me anymore. It's too big for me.
So I've been working out.
You are
So
powerful.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So the role of assistance for Shepard has been a big deal in that he's been very defensive when folks claim that he doesn't create his own work. And you know he's a very hard worker. He is somebody
Oh my
who's
God, he's obsessed.
he is obsessed to a certain extent. But at the same time, let's say, in the contemporary art world, that's not a big deal. We look at Damien Hirst or Jeff Koons that don't touch their work necessarily, and they have these studios that create their
Oh,
work.
you want to talk about the Italian Renaissance?
Yeah, exactly. We can look at guilds. We can look at the Italian Renaissance. But
Raphael was such a big star.
yeah,
Raphael, a guy like, you go
it's a Ninja Turtle, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that Renaissance painter, right?
yeah, Renaissance turtle.
Yeah,
He, you see the breath that he has?
Yeah.
Like, he had cartoons, everything, little figures of him. He was a player. I mean, he really was. He was a beautiful cat, and how do you get a commission from the frickin' Pope? You got to do some shit. You got to schmooze a little bit, baby. But I mean, he had a workshop. He had a guy who was a horse's ass specialist.
yeah,
Literally, nobody except all the big battle scenes. Like you go to the Vatican, the Pope's armies and shit. And Pope's armies.
yeah.
That's bad. That's bad. Anyway, there's a lot of horses in those scenes, and he was the only one who had pictures of horses from behind. Special. Well, he had a horse's ass specialist, Giulio Romano, who did that. And in his workshop. And he had 20, 30 people working in his workshop doing all this shit. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And in fact, the Duke of Mantua, who raised horses for the Pope, he had all his stud horses, raising horses for his armies, really wanted Giulio Romano to do portraits of his horses.
Mm-hmm.
And who wouldn't? If his horse's ass is especially.
That's right.
And so he sent Castiglione, who was like the greatest courtier of his time, down to make Giulio Romano an offer he couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
And Raphael challenged the fucker to a duel. You can't have my horse's ass specialist. So, you know,
That's how it goes.
if Shepard has some people doing a little stuff, shizzles a little stuff for him, you know, where are my assistants?
Well, that's how I was going to follow that. Yeah. No. So you have, let's say, like putting in work in the street. You bring an army together to help you do that. You know, you have more impact, but you don't necessarily use it in your own creative process.
I would if I could.
You would.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a computer graphics guy who's like a monster, you know, like fantastic. This is the guy who's looking at his computer. The first time I had him working with me, he's looking at his computer screen, didn't say a word for 2 hours. And then he says, not to me, but probably to the universe, Homer Simpson is a lot smarter than he looks. Wow, deep. So true. So, you know, I got that guy.
Yeah. All right.
And I
Well, you've already won.
we're going to do a t-shirt that's a skull and a Dodger cap with dope
There you go.
in Dodger type. Now, what does dope mean? How many meanings does it have in colloquial American English? We didn't put a split in. But I'll draw one in for you if you buy a t-shirt. Anyway, he did that. And we have Goldilocks.
Yeah. Well, you've appropriated imagery, and the history of appropriation usually gives some sort of nod to something that you've borrowed before. And that's something Shepard's been really criticized with appropriation, whether it's even called appropriation. It's been called sampling, where he just borrows things without necessarily referencing what it was. I mean, do you have any thoughts?
Or paying for it.
Or, well,
But
sometimes
he
he learned about that. He calls that the greatest mistake, one of the greatest mistakes of his life in terms of.
He called me a little
During the
late on
process.
that one.
Did he? Did you talk to him about that?
I talked to him blue in the face about that, but it was too late.
Yeah. What was said?
Shepard, pay the $150. You know, it's the guy who took the photo. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the other thing. Like these guys, I mean, whatever your worldview is, wherever you come from, you learn as you go. You know, it's like this is a learning experience for him, and that's part of the thing that I like about him, that he actually did learn.
Yeah.
You know, and might take him a while to cop to some mistakes. Doesn't it take us all?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Remember that mistake we made? You haven't told anybody about
Yeah.
that.
When you're in prison.
Yeah. 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 One of the times we were in prison.
One of the time. So, in thinking about Shepard in the future, I mean, he's a young guy. He's certainly here to stay. I mean, where do you think his place will be in art history going forward?
I don't really care. I'd like to think about the subjects he might address.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I mean, any of you all who like make art, you know that obviously, except for a very small, blip of people on the point of the toothpick, there aren't that many artists who make a lot of money. It's not like your parents would encourage you to go get a fine arts degree at Stanford or anything. But the one thing that art can do is you can make art about anything. You can make really good art about anything. It can address any subject that you really care about. You know, like Floppy, your dog. Or yours.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. But really, if you're going to make art, you might as well make art about something you really care about. And Shepard, once he proved his point about the medium is the message and all that, if you look at his art, he has begun seriously, when you get to the Hope poster, very sincere guy. It's not like he has a sense of humor or anything. Just like I got him to do one funny thing.
Yeah.
That was cool. He's cracking jokes these days, and that's also progress.
Yeah.
Like if you get me to stop cracking jokes, that would be progress.
Yeah.
So we kind of trade.
Yeah.
But the potential is unlimited.
Yeah.
Which is the good news. How you view his art as an art critic up against Michelangelo or something is almost irrelevant. You know?
Yeah, well, it's different times, and ultimately I've been, I'm tough on him, but I'm ultimately supportive of him, and I think you know that as well.
He appreciates that.
Yeah, and it's very fair, and I think he is a perfect subject as one of the leaders, let's say, in the contemporary art world, one of the brightest faces out there with so many talking points. He becomes a nice jumping off point for so many of these discussion items. So,
but he's beyond the contemporary art world. I mean, like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
About him and other artists as well.
Yeah.
Like, not just being in the art world. Like, your goal is not just to be in a beautiful white box.
That's right.
Or going down to Miami Basel and having Julie sell all your stuff for a lot of money. Which I would appreciate, by the way. We'll get to that, right?
Yeah. No, they're breaking paradigms. The postmodern art world isn't the same thing it was. So those modern conceptions, and so the T-shirts, the toys, that's all part of sort of expanding that. So
I mean, it still is like a crazy luxury business. Like unbelievable. Prices in the art market. But who buys this stuff? Who is your audience? Like, who are you selling to? Who do you have to let bite your shoulder if you want to sell art? Like the richest fucking people in the world. And what did they do to make their money? You do not want to know if you're a nice person.
Cool. Well, I think it's appropriate to open up if anyone has any questions for Robin or myself. Be glad to answer them. And he won't, but I'll hold him back. So it'll be good. Yeah.
Robbie, interesting thing.
You're not from here, are you?
Bit of a giveaway. I've been here 7 years.
He's been here a while.
Almost 7.
Got an itch?
Sorry? No, I love it. I love it here. This is home.
What's the question?
The question is, you said the medium is the message. Now, you can put up hundreds of posters, thousands of posters, and let's face it, that's what Shepard was doing with his posts, with his
More than thousands.
Yeah. Okay. Posters and stuff.
Pick a number.
Now, if you put something down on Melrose, you'll get between 30 and 50,000 people pass by in a day, which is great. But now with the modern medium of social media, you can do one posting, put it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc., and hundreds of thousands.
Maybe.
It happens.
It happens,
Yeah.
but they have to find it, don't they?
Yeah, which is the whole thing about tagging things right and getting them so they're visibility and reblogged and reposted. Now, in your opinion, is that authentic, or is it
Authentic?
to get your art out in that way? Should it be down to legwork on the street?
I would project holograms on the moon, if I could. Think that would work? Anything. If you're talking about like for myself, I generate the torque in my art pictorially using oil paint. So they start as oil paintings or maybe charcoal drawings if I'm in a hurry. Cloud of dust. And then, shake. If you're concerned about the surface, seeing the surface texture, seeing the original work of art, like how it's made and stuff, translating that into digital is different. You have to, and one thing Shepard does is he makes art for the medium that he's using. So most of his art is computer generated, and there are originals. He makes them kind of like backwards. He makes them because he knows he needs originals. But I mean, whatever you think an original is, the designs, they come from somewhere. They weren't there before, so they're original. But no, I think that if you're concerned about reaching, having some kind of interaction, your art having some kind of interaction with a lot of people, use everything, right? I mean, why not? I know there are a lot of artists who go to their room and play with their crayons and that's it. That's fine. Or, show it to their psychiatrist. that's fine too, because the psychiatrist is going to need a lot of help with you if you're doing drawings and showing them to him. Jackson Pollock did that. Thank God, you know. Didn't help, but we tried. So anyway, yeah, go on with your bad self. You know?
Great. Anyone
Anything
else?
else?
I find it really interesting that there's an association so closely now with street art and graffiti because they were such completely different cultures and almost in conflict with one another at a certain point.
Really?
I think so. I do think that you come from a high end where you have something to say. I think that there's a lot of graffiti that's entrenched in kind of a tribal culture or, quite frankly, gangs, especially here
I'm
in
from
LA.
a tribal culture. Wait a minute.
So am I. I'm part of the tribe too. But no, but I'm.
12
But really,
tribes.
I remember, you know, I remember a time in New York where there were a lot of graffiti artists who were angry with street art taking up their turf because it becomes about turf wars and it becomes about like getting a message out. And when you've got a giant wheat paste going over a tag, that was
Well,
an
that's
issue.
bad
So-
guerrilla etiquette. Come on.
Sure.
You know, I mean, that's impolite.
But there's only so much space in certain corners of the street, you know, and there might be like a prime spot to get your message out, whatever your message is, whether it's, you know, immersed in like drug wars and gang territory, or if it's actually, you know, socio-political. So I was just
You don't
wondering
think
how
drug
you
wars
felt.
in gang territory is socio-political?
Well, that's true too.
Mm.
That's true too. But it
I know what
comes
you're saying,
from-
though.
Yeah,
They're different
comes from
different
you know,
porpoises.
Right, and I was just wondering if you had ever felt that schism, that conflict, if you'd ever come into, if you'd ever felt like an outsider, or been made to feel like an outsider in your own, you know, by using the street as your gallery, when other people are using it, you know, coming from the street and that's their home.
It's a good question. The way I met most graffiti writers that I know was like 3 in the morning when they pop out and say, "You're going over my shit." Oh, sorry. I'm old. I'm white. But usually they would go like, "Oh, you're him."
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you have a certain reputation, obviously, and
But,
a
hey, man,
name.
I had
That's-
Shepard's wife call me, I didn't even know who she was, and complain about me going over their shit. I had Mir's girlfriends, any number of them, call me and say, "Are you Robbie?" "Yeah." "Well, you know, we work hard out here and we do these things and they're silk screens and you do, offset litho and thousands of thousands and you have an army and we have just us and, it ain't fair and stop it." And I'm going, "Okay, sorry." But really, I mean, that's a great way to meet somebody. Dating thing.
Yeah, I guess so.
And actually coming out with us and putting up stuff with us is a great date. It's a great first date. Like speed dating. You find out a lot about somebody really fast. Certain issues they might have or not.
That's the first thing you said to me when we talked on the phone. You said,
It's
yeah,
important.
Yeah.
I like to see people get together.
yeah. That's fun.
Look at us.
Yeah. Look at us
It's
now.
love.
Any other questions?
Come on now. You want Jim to sign your book? Gotta ask a question.
When your assessed value is $15 million and your basic justification for using public space is that you're anti-capitalist, do you find that there might be a complex or a conflict in the situation?
I think it's
Yeah.
bullshit, actually. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
You talking about like a Shepherd's Manifesto or something?
Well, when I saw him speak in Idlewild, when he came back to the school, which is interesting, because ordinarily...
Were you a student there or something? You were
No,
12?
I actually teach in the valley, which is quite impoverished. It's the opposite world of where he came from.
Yeah.
And so a bad kid in a bad neighborhood gets in trouble in high school with his parents. He doesn't have the option of going across the country to a very nice...
No, they send them to jail.
education. Right. So everybody's lives take different paths for different reasons.
Yeah.
In the conversation, the dialogue, 18 arrests or so was mentioned. And I felt like
What?
where he was coming from with that is
What
that
was mentioned?
his arrests, his number of arrests.
Oh, 18?
Yeah,
but-
and I mean, it's almost like it's a validation in the way he spoke as to how real he was as
Mm.
an artist.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how you felt about that.
Well,
Yeah. I can answer real quick because it's interesting because I was talking to him about this the other day. Yeah, I am pointing to hold you down.
yes,
So yeah, no, it is. It's meant to be on purpose.
it's like snapping your fingers on the one.
Yeah, he said something to me about when I did my interview with him about being arrested so many times and how you can't continue that lifestyle up because a new 18-year-old is put on the street every day without an arrest record, and at some point, you know, you have to buy into a system, set up a studio, and make a life for yourself in that way. And he seemed to be very comfortable with those decisions, and you know, didn't see it as, you know, perhaps selling out or you know, he's thankful for those opportunities he's had. But you know, I think he's trying to do the right thing in a way, whatever that may be. I think he has a very strange worldview that has a lot of conflicting ideas going back and forth, if that's fair to say. So, in a way, I'm skirting by your question, but okay, now you had a chance to think about
I'll
it.
tell you a story related to that. Shepard and I both have a friend named Stephen Heller, who is basically the world's expert on contemporary graphic design. And there's a conference every year called the How Conference that was, one year was held in San Diego, and he invited us both to be on a panel with him. And we were down there, and Shepard was talking, and people were giving him all kinds of shit about just what you brought up, his manifesto, and isn't there a contradiction? How can you say this and do this? And he was really bad, and I leaned over to Shepard and I said, tell him you're a capitalist. And he looks at me, and Steve looks at me, and Shepard says, I'm a capitalist. Silence. Almost applause. And that is the answer. You know, it's like, you remember, like, you know, businesses like Body Works or something, but, you know, green businesses that make a lot of money, and then give money to green causes, or try to, you know, like, take lardo out of their products or whatever, you know, like, and they're still capitalists, they're still in business to make money, but, or like Mr. Tesla, you know, what are you gonna say? Hate the car, I hate electricity, you know, it's overrated. You know, electricity is actually underrated. And, you know, Shepard, he never should have got into that thing about, like, I'm anti-capitalist or I'm against any of that stuff. He never was. You know, he went to school, he went to RISD, but he went as a design student, and he always had a commercial design studio. He always had clients, you know, who were like, as whatever clients he could get, all the way up to like Pepsi and whatever, you know, so that's just the way it is, you know, like, you're not gonna, if you say to somebody like that, well, you're living a contradiction, or you're full of shit, the best thing I could say is, yes, I am, you know. But really, it's just, again, a growth process, him trying something, and, you know, damn, reading Marx, probably, you know, like, some of the greatest capitalists in my father's generation had been communists, but because they read Marx, they knew how to deconstruct the capitalist economy and became very rich once they gave up that other shit, you know. And they were the greatest capitalists in the world. I wish I could do that. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know. Let's talk about the stock market. What the fuck is that?
But I think the good way to sum it, I mean, nobody has a coherent worldview when you really think about it. We have a lot of assumptions that go back and forth.
And we all have country. I mean, it's really complicated. We're talking about human beings, you know. Like, I mean, I happen to know, I've known him a long time, and I've seen him go through like hoops, and he's basically just a sincere, good guy who is optimizing what he's got, you know. And you know, if somebody gives you an opportunity, what do? say no, say thank you. But it would be interesting to see what he is going to do once he is so empowered. You know, I'm really interested in that with all artists. You know, first of all, what are you going to do before you're empowered? You know, like what do you have on your mind? And if things work out in this crazy world, like you get Jim to write a book about you. Kenny Sharp is next, by the way. Woo! Crazy!
Easy killer.
I love Kenny. How many years can you do those crazy guys? A lot. You know, I wish he'd come and do my room.
We can arrange that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, blah blah blah. You get Jim to write about you. You're the shit.
All right. I'm gonna quote him on that. Maybe one last question. Yeah, Tom.
Jim, for you, I was excited about your book when you had first told me about it, especially when you told me that you were sort of comparing him to Thomas Kincaid, because I had always thought, you know, and made comments to other people, like, you know, how many cottages in the middle of a forest can you really draw, you know, or paint, you know, like, before you just get exhausted or tired. And obviously, every artist is going to have their sort of home in style that they're going to return to. But, you know, I guess for both of you being, you know, exposed to this giant Shepard Fairey empire, is there a question, or how much of a struggle is there, if at all, is there between, you know, growing as an artist? You know, because I think one of the myths is that to be a growing artist, you always have to be changing your style. And it's not necessarily true. But is there a balance? I mean, how hard is it to strike a balance between growing as an artist versus just kind of turning out the same stuff that continues to sell? Like, you know, another Shepard Fairey print that's red and black and yellow and white. Or, you know what I mean?
Question.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, I'm thinking about the show I just saw, and there wasn't necessarily anything new in that show that I haven't seen before. A lot of symbols, imagery has been reused, maybe reimagined in some way or different configurations, and that bothers me to a certain extent as someone who is really interested in deep and meaningful imagery, and I want to think about it and chew about it. So that's disappointing to me. But at the same time, I do love the experiential aspect that he's created, that people came out of that show going, man, that was amazing. That was awesome. It was like the best show I've ever seen. I'm thinking, are they at the same place I am? It's because LL Cool J performed, and someone from Breaking Bad was there, and there was another. I don't know where Mr. Brainwash was, but I mean, he fits in the same conversation. But I mean, I think that's tough because there's a machine moving forward for him, and I think that's going to be difficult. I think that's going to be one of the struggles for him and how he does that, and how do you create things that are really going to be meaningful. To me, I feel like I think it's an interesting problem. I don't think it's over, but yeah, what do you think?
It's not over when it's over.
Yeah.
But that is a great question because, you know, we talk about branding, and you're talking about billions of products, you know, and instant access through the internet and so forth and so on. And for an artist to break through that with what you might call what in the art world is called a signature style is fantastic. I mean, I actually have one, you know, and I've done 90 street posters, and I've had people, even me, you know, like online at Whole Foods have the checker saying, "Are you Robbie? You're Robbie, right? Yeah, yeah. Where you been, man? What are you doing? You haven't done anything for us lately." Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. But you know, for me, it's a head and a word, and I'm grateful, really grateful that people see that and respond to it and seem to want more of them. But it's also a straitjacket. You know, like I want to paint owls.
Which you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to put them on the street though, as like urban beautification program.
I think that's okay. I think there's no problem with that. I think one of the
owl syndrome, right?
One of the harshest criticism I heard about Shepard is that he's Hello Kitty with pretensions. You know, that it is a brand or it's a logo.
Well, you know, one thing, pretensions are a problem. That's a problem. You hope people grow out of that. You know, like, you feel like you got to put it on because it's really more defensive than anything. It's more protection. And I've taught, you know, on the university system for a long time, and you teach graduate students, and the mantra for anybody who teach graduate students anything, no, because you can't. You have to go into like a meeting with a graduate student saying, you can't teach graduate students anything, you can't teach graduate students anything. No matter what you say, you can't teach graduates, then you're fine. Because what they're doing is learning how to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And actually, the pretensions to intellection, to ideology, to theory, really did not play well.
Yeah.
You know.
You shouldn't have let some of my grad students in on that, so I appreciate that. Some of them are here.
Well, let them
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah,
you know.
seriously. Okay.
Deal with Jim.
Well, you
You can't fool a fucker.
I have a bucket of quotes from today, so thank you for that, Robbie. I appreciate that.
Anytime.
No, I never had quotes like that before.
I'm selling
so,
buckets.
yeah, thank you. Let me say just a thank you to you so much for what you did and the time you spent for this book. I really,
What does
really
this mean
appreciate
to
it.
you? What is, in code, what does this mean? Didn't get paid.
Someone said I love you. I'm like, that's strong. No. But also, thank you for coming out here.
There is a love thing going on.
There is a love thing.
You're gonna get a love.
It's called sarcasm, right? It's one of my spiritual gifts here. That's
Also
what I
a
give back.
defense.
A defense.
You're gonna get a couple
I
of
have a
books.
question.
Okay, we
Are there
do.
more books for sale?
Yes, there are, but Robbie even agreed to sign books with me today
I did
too.
not.
Yes, he did. See, he did. He did.
But I
will
will.
take- Yeah. See. Okay. There we go. And I believe we do it
Any
in the.
name you want.
Yeah, we do it in the back over here. So yeah, there
How
are
about Paul Frank?
Paul.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow. Play-Doh works, so. All right. But thank you all for coming out here, though. That's a really big deal on a Friday night and Good Friday, so thank you so much. Appreciate it.
If you want to grab a copy of the book, they're up at the front register, and then we're going to move to the back counter, so you can just line up along this wall, and then we'll sign books. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And
Appreciate
how
it.
about that designer who designed those books? Who the hell is that?
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to the glue company.
Keep you in order.
Yeah, it was. I'm thinking, I'm glad I have it on tape because I'm I'm a large or
He's very large. He's living large.
Very Give them to the lady. Let me go grab them so you're not like mobbed by everyone. Oh, I have many.
Oh, was it good? Okay, I wasn't sure what you were going to say. Yeah. Is he, where's he now? Is he?
Shepard thought it was so funny.
Oh, I have these.
They think it's so funny.
Well, not newish.
Those are great.
Yes. And are you still up? Are you?
Yeah, they do. They'll be bigger like in a week. They'll be bigger.
I remember
You
because
gotta
we're
put them in the ground and they grow.
I know you probably hear it all the time. But
Yeah, shelter puppies.
Oh man,
Wild
my
cats.
people. Small wildcats.
did you see right at the top of the street?